analyze how and what impact it will have on our economy, any consideration on any new borrowed money, and how we can deal with it. I cannot overemphasize because colleagues have dealt into it. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
Honorable Martin Peter MP from Dewa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I too want to support this report. Mr. Speaker, there are some idioms which also teaches us. For example, debt is slavery to those who are free. But if those who are free are indebted grossly, they become the slaves of the debt of the lender, for this case. And also, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sir George there is a friend of mine. But if you see him biting off what he cannot chew repeatedly, you know he will choke over that. The situation for our country is grave, is serious when it comes to debt. And as a house, I think somebody said, it's a fiduciary responsibility for this house. Let us stop lamenting, but oversight the executive so that they don't go overboard. To me, how I understand policy is that it's a plan of action. The policy statement we make, and also now we have come with the midterm strategy. Strategy is also as the policy. Action plan which should be followed when doing stuff. And in following that, I think as a house, we did amendment of our standing orders that we should get the reports from these ministries every 3 months. Let's not rely on auditors' report. It's too late. All these yearly reports are too late when things have already been done. But if we can follow closely and see what is being done after 3 months, then we can prevent some of these things. I think that is the right intervention we should tap into. Mr. Speaker, there is something here which I think is very, very grave as well, and that is the fidelity to the plans which we have put in. For example, look at the interest. Actually, we are paying only interest. Over 90% of what we pay is interest, not even principal. And then there's another animal called the exchange rate. Every time our shilling loses a shilling down, we pay 40 billion to the loan because of the exchange rate. So the Treasury should be really uptight in making sure that the Kenya shilling does not fall that gravely to the dollar. Lastly, this point which I want to make, Mr. Speaker, I think it has been cited many, many times. Contingency spending. The notorious 223, Article 223. This is what puts the government way over what they are supposed to be spending whenever they are allocated money. Perhaps we need to amend this. I know there will be a lot of resistance, but spending before and looking for sanitation later is what is causing all this problem. And I think we should stand up as a house and say, enough is enough for this Article 223. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I think for us to, there's a mission here which I thought should have been included in this midterm strategy, and that is the debt renegotiation. There's some debts should just be renegotiated. There's no way we are going to meet them, especially when you commit, you don't use it, and it continues to accumulate the interest. You should sit back with the lender. So, see, for us to remain relevant in this market, let us renegotiate this and pay this way. Otherwise, I thank the committee, and I think as a house, as I said, let us stand for the people of Kenya to say no more borrowing to pay for other borrowed money. Thank you.
The Member of Parliament for Undanyi, Honorable Mashako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the report, the 2024 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy report that comes to this House at the appropriate time. Honorable Speaker, it is important to put things into perspective. Many years back, Mr. Speaker, this country has been engaging into borrowing, both locally and out of this country, foreign borrowing, without involving Parliament. But this report, Honorable Speaker, the medium-term debt management strategy, outlines clearly the policy of government on how they intend to engage into borrowing to make sure that the budget deficits that every year when you pass budget are able to be covered through borrowing. Honorable Speaker, it is important to realize that as this debt management strategy is a government policy, and we want to say that now that the government has brought this document to Parliament as per the Constitution and as per the PFM Act of 2012, it's upon this House that we should make sure that the policies and the aspirations that have been outlined in these documents are fulfilled. Honorable Speaker, many times borrowing in this country has been shrouded in controversy. You remember the times of Eurobond, when it was clear that money came into the country, but you could not trace where the money went. But today, as we read this report, we find ourselves in a situation where there's hope that if this document is to be followed to the letter, then this country, we may get ourselves into a better way of managing our fiscal debts. And more so, Honorable Speaker, not to overburden the current generation, but also the future generation, Honorable Speaker. There's a principle in our Constitution that talks about intergenerational equity, Honorable Speaker. Today, we may be excited about the big projects that are done through money that we borrow from Chinese and every other partners out there. But if we are not prudent enough, then we'll be overburdening our children to a situation whereby we bequeath our children a country that is not sustainable, and therefore we fail in our duty as people who are responsible. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that when I remember last year when the CS Treasury brought to this House the attempt to change our debt from an absolute number of 10 trillion and indicated that we would want to change it to an anchor, a percentage of GDP. And they indicated that our aspiration is to have 55% debt to GDP. We raised a lot of issues, Honorable Speaker, because it looked like there's just another gimmick to confuse Parliament and confuse the country, Honorable Speaker. Today, we are at above, in this report, is indicating that we are above 70% to GDP. So the ability of this government to reduce the debt borrowing to 55% plus 5 that they indicated is something that must be looked at, must be pushed, must be forced, so that this government shows they have the will and the heart to bring down borrowing, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, before I end, Honorable Speaker, I must say that we have realized that a good mix of domestic and foreign borrowing, it's recommended around 45% should be foreign and 55% should be local. But in this report, it shows clearly that we have reversed that trend. We have more foreign borrowing vis-a-vis domestic borrowing. And Honorable Speaker, we find ourselves in huge risks of exchange risks, whereby when we know our shilling had lost a lot of value, depreciated against the dollar, and most of our debt is dollar denominated. And therefore, we end up having our debt ballooning without real value coming to the country. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we must ensure that as we balance between costs and risks,
The Speaker adds you 2 minutes to conclude your...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So we must look at the trade-offs between, if we borrow more on foreign loans, Honorable Speaker, we are at risk of the exchange rate risk. And at the same time, when we borrow more in the local currency, Honorable Speaker, we may be crowding out investors and private sector in the country. So this trade-off, Honorable Speaker, must be well calculated. And therefore, this report, I like the part that they say Treasury must submit, after immediately we pass this report, they must submit to this House, Honorable Speaker, their debt sustainability analysis, so that we are able to know that the debt we carry as a country is sustainable, is a debt that we are able to manage and pay, Honorable Speaker. Yesterday, I sit in the Budget Committee, Honorable Speaker. The PS National Treasury sat before us and told us that this debt, what they call fiscal consolidation path, they have been following. They wish to make it friendly so that we do not, we have to cover our debt, our budget deficits. But at the same time, Honorable Speaker, we must say that we must continue paying our debt in good time. As we pay our debt, we should not sacrifice cheap debt to an expensive debt like we did recently, whereby Eurobond, we raised it at 6.75, now we'll be paying at 10-point-something%, and we call that sustainability, Honorable Speaker. So as I sit, Honorable Speaker, it is my hope that this policy will be followed, and this Parliament must keep the government into check so that then we find dividends out of this good report. I support. Thank you.
Honorable David Gikaria, as a chairperson enrollment.
Nashukuru sana Honorable Speaker kwa kunipa nafasi kwa kuchangia mjadala huu wa mambo ya madeni. Mheshimiwa Speaker, deni ni kitu ambaye tukiangalia sana katika maisha yetu, kama mtu, kama familia, kama nchi, nani hana deni? Na unaangalia hii pesa ambapo unapoenda kutafuta ndio uweze kufanya unaenda kukopa kwa kufanyia nini? Kuna pesa ambazo zinakopwa ambazo hazina faida kabisa katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Hata kwako nyumbani unapokopa ni lazima uwe unaweka uzito. Nikikopa kwa sababu ni lazima niwe na mshahara wa kutosha, kama ni serikali ni lazima iokote pesa na njia mikakati ya kuweza kuokota hela zile ambazo zitasaidia kulipa madeni haya, na pia unakopa kutoka kwa nani, na kama utashindwa kulipa mambo gani yatafanyika? Ni maswali mengi ambayo inafaa tujiulize wakati tunakopa, wakati tunaenda kuchukua hizi hela, either kama ni ya mtu binafsi ama ni kwa nchi. Na kwa sasa katika vile tumeweka idara yetu ya fedha imetoa mikakati ya kutuelekezea ya kwamba hatujaenda vizuri, na tunajua kweli hatujaenda vizuri. Hapo awali, Mheshimiwa Spika, unakumbuka pesa zinachukuliwa ambazo zinakuja kufanya miradi, na hii miradi si miradi tu ya kuja kuweka hela bila kutoa mapato. Lakini wakati mwingi hakuna wakati tulikuja tukaambiwa hizi hela zilifanya kazi gani ama zilienda kutumika kwa njia gani, ndio tuweze kusema kwa kweli tunapata ile pesa, ile value, wanasema kwa kizungu value for what you have borrowed. Kwa hivyo nilitaka kusema ya kwamba, Mheshimiwa Spika, ninaona mikakati mingi na ninashangaa ikiwa bado idara yetu ya Ministry ya Fedha bado inaweka mikakati tangu tupate independence, lakini tunaendelea kukiuka. Wenzetu wachache hapa wamesema ya kwamba tuwekee mikakati na tufanye kazi zetu kama wajumbe. Hii maneno si ya executive hata kidogo. Mambo haya yote tumepitisha katika sheria zetu. Chochote ambaye executive anataka kufanya, sana sana kuhusiana na haya maneno, ni lazima ipitie kwa hii nyumba. Na kama inapita kwa hii nyumba na tunapitisha, then hatuwezi kuweka lawama kwa mtu mwingine. Lawama ni sisi wajumbe, tukae chini na tujiulize, kwa sababu tunakopa, hizi pesa ni za kufanyia nini? Tunapokubalia serikali ikope ndio iweze ende kufanya, ni kuuliza maswali, tutarudi tupate mapato gani? Kwa mikakati gani ambayo tutakuwa tunaweka? Na kama vile ninaona ripoti hii ambayo imeandikwa na kamati ambaye husika, tunawashukuru kwa kazi nzuri, na tunaomba ya kwamba isiwe tu tena ni matamshi, ni maneno, wakaketi tukaweka maneno kwa karatasi, kisha tena tukakuja tena kufanya kinyume na ile mambo ambaye tunaweka mikakati ya kuweza kufuatilia. Kuna njia nyingi ambazo mandugu zetu katika hii wizara na kamati yetu ya fedha ambayo imepitia kuangalia, lakini ni lazima tuangalie na tuulizane ya kwamba ni muhimu kama nchi tusiwekee madeni hata kwa watoto ambaye bado hawajazaliwa, ya kwamba hii madeni kama tunayafanya, kila mtu lazima abebe mzigo wake kwa wakati unayofaa. Ni makosa sana mimi nibebe niwachie mwingine aje alipe kama vile ilivyotendeka. Nitabeba kwa sababu najua niko na miaka fulani, na mimi nikimaliza miaka yangu atakaye kuja kulipa, hiyo sio shughuli. Nafikiria sisi kama bunge tuko na majukumu ya kusimamisha fikra kama hizo kwa siku zijazo, ya kwamba mimi kwa sababu niko mjumbe hapa miaka 5, sijali vile nitakavyofanya kwa hii miaka 5, yule mwingine atakaye kuja ndio atakuwa anabeba mzigo huu. Tunaomba Wizara ya Fedha na kamati yetu kutoka sasa wachukue mikakati isipotendeka, kwa sababu kama sisi tunapigia upato hii pite, lakini kisha pita tena tuone mambo haya bado tunaambiwa tumeingia trilioni sasa 15, alafu tunaanza kusema ni ile bunge ya mwaka jana.